Hello everyone. So today we will discuss lesson 5. It's about the features of language. The first feature is language is arbitrary. So language is arbitrary in the sense that there is no underlying relationship between the words of a language and their meanings or the ideas expressed by them. So it means we use the language not because we followed a particular system, but it was chosen or we just happened to use it until now. And there is example, so there is no explanation why a female adult human being should be named a woman in English, a woman in Urdu, a woman in Persian, and a woman in French. We just happen to use those words or choose those words to explain or to identify or to name a woman, but there is no explanation behind that. In addition, choosing a word to mean a specific thing or concept is purely subjective. But when a word is chosen for a particular referent, it comes to staying as such. So it's purely subjective. So the way we choose the words that we use to describe something are all subjective. And after that, we just get used to using it. And it should be remembered that if the language had not been arbitrary, again, there would have been only one language in the world. So, and that would be very difficult. Okay, since we know that we have very diverse language all around the world, so we have different names for a particular thing. For example, for the word woman, it can have a different name in different language. So that's why we can say that language is again arbitrary. Next, language is social. So language is a collection of traditional communicative symbols used by people to communicate in a group. So of course, in order for us to convey our message to one another, we should communicate with each other by using a language. So language in this sense is the possession of a social community consisting of an indispensable set of rules that enables its members to relate to each other, communicate with each other, and cooperate with each other. Yes, and that's why we can call it as a social institution. So without language, it would be very hard to communicate with others. So through language, we can cooperate and work with one another. Therefore, we can say that language exists in society and it is a way of fostering and creating a culture and of forming human ties. So remember that communication is very important. So you communicate to your friends constantly and to your family constantly so that to avoid misunderstandings and for us to build better relationship. The third feature is language is symbolic. So language consists of different sound symbols and their graphological equivalents used to represent such things, events, or meanings. These symbols are randomly chosen and, conventionally accepted and used. Yeah, so aside from the language is arbitrary, language is social, so there are different sound symbols so that we can recognize the language. So that's why we can say that they have their graphological equivalents or their symbols. For example, for the alphabet, so we have the different sounds and we also have the symbols. For the a sound, so we have letter A, so as a symbol. And these symbols again are chosen, okay, and become accepted and we use it. So words in a language are not just signs or numbers, but symbols of meaning. The intelligibility of a language depends on the proper understanding of the symbols. So that's why it's very important as well that we can recognize the symbols so that we will understand or we can understand what it means. Number four, language is systematic. So while language is symbol, its symbols are organized in a specific structure. Both languages have their own scheme of arrangements. So thus we can say that each language is a system of systems. So of course, yeah, there is symbol. Language has symbols, and these symbols are organized in a specific structure so that it's easy for us to study, to learn, and to use it. All languages have phonological and grammatical structures, and there are many subsystems within the system. So, for example, yeah, within the grammatical system, we have morphological and syntactic systems, and within these two subsystems, we have systems such as plural, mood, aspect, tense, and etc. Yeah, so yeah, all languages have phonological and grammatical structures. Phonological structures refers to the sound aspects of the language, and yeah, for example, the sounds, the pronunciation. And grammatical is more on the structure, or how we construct our thoughts or our sentences. And these structures have subsystems. So example, for the grammatical system, we have the morphological, or how the words are formed. Okay, and syntactic, so more on the system, or more on the sentence structure. And again, these subsystems will also have another system, like we have to understand how to pluralize the word, what is the mood, what is the tense of the verb or the word use, and etc. So this kinds of system is very important for us to study, or easily study and understand the language. Number five, language is oral. So language consists primarily of vocal sounds created only by the physiological articulatory system of the human body. So sound is part of our system. So scientifically, we produce sounds. And it only appeared as vocal sounds at the beginning, and after that writing came. So it is a clever attempt to reflect vocal sounds. So to better understand or to recognize the sounds that people make, so we invented, or people have invented, writing. So writing is just a visual representation of the sounds of the language. So the linguists say that speech is a predominant one. So of course, speech comes first before writing. Next, language is instinctive or conventional. So no language has been developed by a group of people daily out of a mutually understood formula. So it means language was not developed by anyone. Okay, it's just happened that we speak this way, and we were able to understand each other, and later on we were able to adopt the same language, and we're able to, or we get used to using it in order to communicate. So language is the product of evolution and convention, and each generation transmit this convention to the next generation. So that's why we can observe some differences or some changes with our language, because just like time, language also evolves, okay, and changes. It also change. Okay, so therefore, like all human institutions, languages are also changing and dying, growing and expanding. So any language then is a group convention. It is not instinctive, since human beings acquire it. So it's not something that we are required to do, or that yeah, that's a particular rule that we have to follow. So it's just a way of our acquisition. We just acquire it from people and then learn how to use it so that we can communicate. And nobody has a language of heritage, and it acquires it because it has an inherent ability. So we acquire language, and language can change over time. Number seven, language is productive and creative. So the structural elements of human language can be merged in order to create new utterances which neither the speaker nor the listener can ever make or hear before any listener, but which both sides understand without difficulty. Therefore, we say language varies on the basis of the needs of society. So there are times where we create new words, okay, based on what's the trend. Okay, so example, these days we come up with the word netizens to describe people who are using the internet or citizens on the internet. Okay, so by just that we can say that language is very productive and creative. So we base our needs of the society in order to come up with new words that we think are very relevant and which can be understood by everyone. Right, now let's talk about the importance of language. Okay, first, language is the key to all human activities. So without language, it would be very hard to communicate to others and to do our activities. And language also is considered as the vehicle through which the world can be understood and appreciated. Without language, people are isolated and helpless. Okay, so that's why it's important that we know how to communicate properly with others. And these days, we know that English is considered as our second language here in the Philippines, and English is like the universal language. So we use this and we learn English so that we can communicate with people from other countries, since they also have different language. So if we don't have this common language that we can use to communicate with others, then it will be very hard to cooperate with them or to interact with them in terms of business, education, and other sectors. And language is a conscious or unconscious part of nearly everything we do. So we are conscious of the words that we are going to say, and we change our language depending on the person we are talking to. And sometimes it can be unconscious if we yeah, depends also on our feelings or in our current emotions. So example, if you got angry, so sometimes you cannot control your emotion, you can blurt out words that are inappropriate. So that's why language can be conscious or unconscious. And it is a personal matrix for receiving, processing, and sharing ideas and information. Without language, it would be impossible or very hard to explain or to express our ideas with each other. And the need for language is a basic premise underlying language teaching and learning. So, for teachers, it's important that we know how to communicate effectively to our students. Okay, so that's why we need to learn the language. And language permits functional and creative exploration of the world of meaning by allowing us to communicate with others and with ourselves. So communication is not only limited to our interaction with others, so we can also communicate with ourselves. Yeah, so that's what we call intrapersonal communication when you try to talk to yourself sometimes. And competency in language is a prerequisite for productive and satisfying experience. So if we are not competent enough with the language, then it will be very hard, as I mentioned, to express our ideas and to express our thoughts. Therefore, we cannot communicate efficiently with others. So that's why competency in language is very important. All right, so I think that would be all for this lesson. So thank you so much for listening and please study. We will have a quiz about this one. Thank you.